Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The finals between Kim Clijsters and Serena Williams about to happen, but just moments ago, more drama as Venus and Richard Williams walk down, and here's the crowd again. It's a long walk down to the courtside box. Few people started to applaud. And then in a minute, there's going to be a heckler. I'm not going to sure we're going to be able to see it, but Richard actually stopped and looked at somebody, and it was a very tense situation, Mary Jo. I've never seen anything like this at a tennis match.
Neither have I. It's pretty amazing. It's incredible that the crowd booed for so long. I had heard rumors before the match that some people were unhappy and might go out there to boo, but it was the majority of the crowd.
I actually talked to a tournament official as we see Serena's numbers beforehand, and they actually talked to the ushers, anticipating that this might get a little bit out of hand, and just trying to get the ushers to make sure they kept people under control. Here was Richard after the heckler and more boos. Reminiscing a little bit of the '68 Olympic scene, a flashback, and Richard Williams now has taken his seat beside the court, and Kim Clijsters will start things off. We'll get back to tennis now.
It's going to be tough, Pam, for Serena Williams here to focus, especially early in the match. I mean, this has never happened to her before.
Bit of a schizophrenic crowd reaction. A few boos, some applause. Serena Williams with a win, 6-2 in the third set.
A lot of drama in this match today, Pam. You got to hand it to Serena Williams, going over to hug her father and her sister. More boo from the crowd.
Venus saying something to Serena there. More than just, I think, congratulations. Here's Richard when the match was completed.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, October 17th, 2014. So I have been told. 6th study session on Mr. Richard Williams, Black and White, the Way I See It. We are picking up on chapter 19. For folks who have been tuning in, you can be ready to roll. The audio clip that you heard, I have mentioned before that in my view, one of the most inspirational, powerful illustrations of codification, the 2001 Indian Wells final with Serena Williams and Kim Clijsters. That entire match is available online. You can check it out. And the audio that you heard at the beginning of the broadcast, that is the beginning of the match, where you can hear the tacky and trifling behavior of the white folks who were in attendance, and then the conclusion. And I would just say again to keep in mind that Serena Williams was 19 years old when all of that transpired. It is just an amazing display, and it still comes up every year. I think that tournament happens in like March or April, sometime in the early spring. But every year, this gets rehashed, and you hear white people making excuses and saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that, they're holding this over us and they won't go back to the tournament." There's a great Sports Illustrated piece that was written. I actually read the entire report on the air from 2013 when they were saying they should go back. A black female, her name is Elizabeth Newman, where she wrote about this last year and saying that it is so, in my opinion, ridiculous and racist for these white people to say, "Oh my gosh, you're just making a big to-do about nothing. Get out there and play. I can't believe that you keep rehashing this and just going over and saying that it's racist and they treated you so bad." It's just ridiculous, and I'm so proud that both Serena and Venus have refused to go back and play, but that is going to be covered during this week's segment, among other things. I think this week we also will get, at least in my view, definitive, unambiguous conclusion on the spiritual, religious importance of Mr. Richard Williams. Definitely pay attention to that as we read. We will get started. Black and white, the way I see it. Mr. Richard Williams. Context of White Supremacy. Chapter 19. I started stockpiling every extra penny I earned to pay for the girls' training or for an emergency. I didn't want, nor did I ever seek, the kind of endorsements other parents wished for their children. If I was going to put my kids into tennis, it was my responsibility to outfit them and train them. What we didn't have, we did without willingly. We were one family devoted to each other with one goal, supporting each other as we went forward. It wasn't our nature to worry about what others thought of our coming from the ghetto or spend a lot of time comparing ourselves to others. Serena remembers it this way. When you're a little kid, you don't think about rich and poor, so I never really thought about what I had or didn't have. I just knew I was alive and had fun and did what my parents told me. I was happy. I never felt like I wanted things I couldn't have. I never had a bed until I was 10, but I always shared one with my sisters or slept with my parents. It was fun sleeping with my sisters, especially Venus, because we were so close. As the youngest, you just slide around a little bit because people don't take as much notice of you. When your older sisters get in trouble, you don't. My dad was definitely strict when we were young. We had to study every night and do our journals and go to bed every night at 9 o'clock. Venus would always read to me, and we'd talk for hours. When I couldn't sleep, she would tell me stories. Every time, as soon as she started telling me a story, I would fall asleep. A second into the story, I would be asleep. But if she didn't tell me a story, I couldn't sleep. I really looked up to my dad. I was a daddy's girl. I think girls with both parents are usually daddy's girls, and most boys are mama's boys. But, of course, we didn't have any boys that lived in the house with us. I just remember my dad was so tall to me. My head was always below his butt. I never could get beyond the height of his butt. I don't know why it sticks in my memory. I just remember thinking, one day I want to be taller than his behind. Training started early for my kids, but it wasn't only on the tennis courts. I used to take Venus and Serena to work with me so they could learn the importance of planning, responsibility, and a strong work ethic at their early age. In my final 75-page plan, I called this program the Job Development and Education Preparation, JDEP. I bought dozens of books for the girls so they would have something to do when I took them to work with me. They loved reading and thought they were the best readers in the entire world. It amazed me how much they learned from one day to the next. The women in our neighborhood saw me take the girls to work and knew my stress on reading. When they started comparing me to their husbands, I knew I was going to have a problem. Why don't you spend your time with our children like Richard Williams? A good father cares if his children can read. If he can take his girls to work with him, why can't you? This attitude contributed to some of the men being jealous of me. It eventually escalated into anger. In retaliation, they set fire to a building I was protecting on Compton Avenue. I was so angry I tried my best to catch them and break their necks. As usual, the building's owner did not share my sentiment. He gladly collected the insurance payout. Neighbors thought I was working the girls too hard. They didn't like that from the time Venus and Serena were 3 and 2, I had them delivering phone books in the neighborhood for money. But little Serena's attitude was one of combat even then. I wanted to pick up the phone books all by myself, and my dad wouldn't always let me because they were so big and heavy. At 2, I was really small, the runt of the family, and I remember those phone books being basically bigger than me, but I felt like I can pick this book up. In fact, I got angry because my dad only let me deliver one phone book. I said, I want to do more. So me and Venus would drag the books across the lawns and up the steps and deliver them together. Actually, their mom didn't like my taking such little ones to deliver phone books either. She got so upset, she decided to leave me. I lost a wonderful wife, I thought, till she got back to her mom's house and saw her lazy brothers doing nothing and people around the neighborhood doing less. She came right back home and the girls kept on delivering phone books. The difference between the way our family did things and the way other people around us did things continued to increase. When Venus was 9 years old, she made all A's in school. So did Serena because she had to do everything Venus did. Some of the neighborhood people made a fuss about my making the girls study so hard and practice tennis for so many hours. Someone even called the police on me for abusing my kids. I told the police, I don't mind you coming and locking me up for that reason, but what won't happen is you damn cops coming here one day to tell me you're sorry you had to blow my daughter's damn heads off because they were on drugs or running around stealing cars or hanging with hoodlums. You won't ever tell me that. I was not going to let my girls be swept into a culture of drugs and bad people. Too many young black girls in the ghetto got pregnant because they didn't have parents to make them avoid it or thought it was the only thing a young black girl could do. For that reason, I didn't let my girls play with dolls. I had nothing against dolls, I just didn't want Venus or Serena to believe motherhood was the end goal of their lives when there were so many other goals to be attained. I believed another way to prevent my children having bad values was to have them see reality firsthand. Venus was about 6 years old, right after my mom died, when I took her and Serena down to Skid Row in Los Angeles. People lived on the street there, and everything they owned was in a shopping cart. One lady was arguing, cursing, and drinking wine. I stopped the car for Venus and Serena to listen. The lady came up to us and told Venus, "Give me $1." Venus looked at her long and hard. Then she looked at me. I said, "It's up to you." She gave the lady $1, and that lady started crying. She was close enough they could see the bugs in her hair. Before then, you couldn't get Serena to dress well or do her hair. After we left, from that day forward, Serena wanted to change clothes 2 or 3 times a day, and to this day, you can't stop Serena from dressing up. She used to tell me, "I don't want to live like those people." That lady also told my girls she had a baby somewhere. She said she never knew she was having sex. She was so high. The girls asked, "Well, who's the baby's father?" "I don't know." "Well, when did it happen?" "I don't know." After that, I had to ask them, "Is this the life you want?" "No, we don't want that life." Then I took them to Beverly Hills and drove around and let them see things. "Is this the life you're looking for?" "Yes." "Good. Then this is what you need to do." Life is a first-hand experience. I tried to give my girls a special life education. First, they had to learn that tennis was only a game. That's why they call it playing tennis. I wanted them to know that the life they lived off the court, their family life, was far more important. In the family, we cherished and loved one another. When people ask me how I got along so well with Venus and Serena, I tell them the key to getting along with your children is honesty. I was always honest about how much I loved being a father and enjoyed the responsibilities that came with it. I was honest with them about how I saw life. I was honest that they had to take responsibility for themselves. I was honest that Orsine and I would not accept anything but obedient children. I was honest about my mistakes. That made it easier for the kids to be honest with me. Venus and Serena always shared their feelings with me. If Venus did something, she would tell me. If Serena did something, she would tell me. That has never changed. I don't think you can prepare a child for life too early, but that's not what we do in America anymore. My mom used to say to me that I couldn't raise my kids the way they did in the 40s and 50s. I thought she was wrong. Previous generations worked early, learned early, left the house early. Our children go to nursery school at 3 and learn to sit in a circle. They go to kindergarten at 5 years old and learn arts and crafts. In Europe and Asia, kids start early and go to class from 7 in the morning till late in the afternoon with 1 lunch break. That would not work here. It would be called child abuse. It's why we cannot compete with those countries. I feel that we're way too soft on our children. The way Venus and Serena were raised, they didn't have any choice but to be strong. When they were 5 years old, they had to learn Taekwondo to protect themselves. They also had to learn how to dance ballet and tap. Having taken dance lessons myself to learn to move better on the tennis court, I knew they would learn balance and grace the same way. It would also be a positive part of their lives. I taught them about money and made sure they always worked to have their own. After school, they used to help each other sell lemonade and cookies outside on the sidewalk. They enjoyed it and made money, and they weren't even open on Sunday. We're too soft on ourselves and our kids. We don't demand excellence. We don't train them to work hard from an early age. We want to give them kindergarten and ring around the rosy and nonsense that does not really give you any security. Security comes from knowledge. Knowledge is power. Power is the ability to win. That's what I believe. That's why I brought them up that way, and I always tried to be a good example for them. I believed that if I showed them I had strength of character, I would have more success creating children with character. If you are a parent, you should know this does not happen by accident. I did not just send the girls off on a bus somewhere or to a class. I took them by the hand. I showed them the ghetto. I showed them Beverly Hills. I showed them the champions of their sport. I showed them struggle. I gave them a family history. I taught them about literature, philosophy, and the history of their race. I told them, I am a thinking man. You must be thinking women. However, in my plan, making Venus and Serena tennis stars posed one question far more difficult and important than any other. Was I going to be their father or their coach? It went around and around in my head. Could I be one to the exclusion of the other? Could I be both? What kind of parent would I be if I tried to be father and coach? I had studied tennis. I had trained Oracene. I knew how to succeed. But how could I transmit all that knowledge to Venus and Serena and take them through the daily grind of tennis training without blurring or damaging the most important role in my life and theirs, being their father? What would continual correction and criticism do to our relationship? In all matters, including tennis, I decided I would always be their father first. I have never regretted my decision for an instant. What a relief it was to have that as my guide. In one stroke, I had removed from my life the burden of criticizing my children. It was the best decision I have ever made. I have seen so much damage in this world done by parents who take the other road. No matter the necessities of Venus and Serena's tennis training or the goals I had set for them, I was their father first, and they were put on this earth to be nurtured by me into fine and happy people. Tennis would be part of their lives, a big part, but only part. From the beginning, I decided that if people came to me later on and told me my daughters were great tennis players, I had failed. Success would be if they came up to me and said my daughters were great people. Approaching the girls' upbringing as a parent and not a coach, I could see that success in life was the union of three fundamental elements: confidence, courage, and commitment. They formed what I call the Williams life triangle, the cornerstone of what I taught Venus and Serena. The first and initially most important element of the triangle is commitment. How do we teach it? Always by example. Teaching commitment to our children requires that we be models of commitment ourselves. We can't teach lessons to our children that we ourselves do not illustrate. A child best understands the theories of life his or her parents embody. We must be daily examples of the values we preach. To teach them strength, we must be strong. To teach them honesty, we must be honest. To teach them commitment, we must be committed. My mother taught me about an important element of commitment: timing. When I was a child, I thought everyone got dressed up for church but me. I wanted a suit for church, too. So I went to make money by picking cotton. I picked all day for 5 or 6 weeks and saved enough money to get a suit. It was a good plan. I got a suit. The problem was that I forgot I needed a shirt, a tie, and shoes. Richard, you've done a great thing, Mama told me. You have the suit you desire to have, but the commitment you had wasn't enough to follow through. You didn't do everything necessary to support it. The suit needed a shirt. The shirt needed a tie, and none of those things had you thought about. I began to understand that a commitment was really a challenge. Time is a factor in all challenges. I thought I'd go back and work twice as hard and buy the other things I needed, but the time wasn't there. Parents must teach children how to take advantage of time. If they have something or someone that takes away their time, it can also take away their commitment. If they are committed, they must let nothing stand in the way of their correct use of time. I also found that it always helps to write notes on what you are committing to, and I had Venus and Serena do that from the time they were little. I got them in the habit of writing down their dreams and aspirations and how they planned to reach them. They didn't have to write about tennis. In fact, I preferred they didn't. It could be a goal in school, something they wanted to learn, anything. I'd always find some special time to sit with each of them and help them write down on paper what they planned to accomplish that week. I think it's a great way to teach your kids to focus on their commitments and to measure their success. To this day, both girls keep journals, and Serena keeps her tournament journal and her match notes, in which she writes inspirational observations to herself before every match. Serena once said to me, "Daddy, you know what I want to be when I grow up?" I said, "What?" "I want to be a veterinarian." She wanted to be a veterinarian so much she started surrounding herself with the things that would help her to be a veterinarian. I had her make notes on how to become a veterinarian. She wrote pages on the subject. She read books. She asked me to take her to see a veterinarian I knew. I thought, one day, boy, she's going to be a great veterinarian. Of course, she changed her mind and became something far different. But it was the earliest commitment I saw her make, and I was proud and impressed by her serious effort. Of course, you don't always know what your kids are thinking, and it may be years before they tell you, like Serena did, and I had to laugh with her at what she said. "Dad, you always wanted to talk. The 10-page plan writing assignments, you would take one topic and talk for hours and hours. We would have family meetings, and you have to remember how little I was, so I kind of loved and hated them. Every time we sat down, you would say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And Serena, did you write down your plan?" On and on. I always wrote something, even if I didn't actually mean it. It's funny. When you're young, you don't see the value in it. You just don't want to sit there for 2 hours, literally 2 hours. And I'm going to be honest, Dad, I wasn't always listening. It's only now I see the real value of learning how to plan and organizing my thoughts. Now I understand how important those lessons were and what part they play in life. The love of your family, that's what's important. Knowing that you are loved and that you created love in others, that's what's real. One advantage I had with Serena was having Venus as a role model. Venus was the greatest example of true commitment. Venus is the most committed person I have ever known. I was happy Serena looked up to her. I wanted both girls' heroes to be their sisters and parents, the ones who loved and cared for them. Venus's first commitment was to reading. I wanted her to read everything she could lay her hands on, and she did just that. To this day, she has never stopped reading. She always surprises me. She's a really unbelievable human being. Sometimes I check on the kids around midnight, after putting Venus in bed by 9, and she was still reading. She got Serena to read too, and loved explaining things to her. Serena still demonstrates the awesome commitment she learned from Venus in the work she does and the life she leads. The truth is, I have never met a child who failed on his or her own. Bad friends, bad families, bad neighborhoods all too easily stand in the way of a child's commitment to success. This is why you find that children who understand commitment almost always have a model for it. My mother was my model. She raised me and taught me. I tried to emulate her love and her strength of character. I tried to be my children's model by having good character myself, by being honest with them, by being positive, by succeeding in business, by owning property, and by being so clear about my love. When Oracene was pregnant, she meant so much to me. I wanted to be there with her all the time and go through everything she went through. I knew I couldn't physically feel the pain of the load she was carrying, but mentally I thought I could. When she went to the doctor, I would go also. Not one time, every time. I refused to leave her side, even when the doctor was examining her. It got so the doctor up and told me to go into the waiting room. To be polite, I agreed, but I didn't go. The next time he told me I needed to go to the waiting room, I said, I sure will if that's where you're going to do your examination, but if you're not, you better stop asking me to go out there because I'm going to stay right here with her. As we got closer to Venus's birth, it seemed like every 3 or 4 days, Oracene would go to the hospital. Finally, they said she was ready to deliver, and I took her to have Venus. As I was putting on the gown and slippers to go to the labor room, I started thinking about all the things I wanted Venus to do. To play tennis, to be educated, to be a certain kind of person. Then I thought about what that little baby was going to experience if she was going to do all that. She was going to go through all of the prejudice I had been through. She was going to be called names. She was going to be called nigger. I could visualize it all, and I didn't want that for my child. Suddenly, I couldn't bear for Venus to come into this world. Not that I didn't love her. Of course I did. I didn't love what she would have to go through. And if there was any way I could have stopped it, I would have. I started to yell. Pain tightened my chest and sweat poured off me like I was having a massive heart attack. My life rose up to haunt me, and I couldn't bear my child having to go through what I experienced. The nurses wanted to know what was wrong, but I couldn't share with them what was happening inside me. It turned out Oracene was having a a false labor, so I calmed myself down and we headed back home. On the way, she asked me, "Did you hear some fool hollering his head off in the hallway? He was yelling and screaming and disturbing everyone." I didn't want to tell her that fool was me. When I got home, I made her as comfortable as I could and went out and walked for a while. I was so scared and nervous, I started praying, asking Jehovah, "Don't ever let me have fear again. Take my fear from me." That night I felt my fear leave me and not return. I vowed that what had happened to me was never going to happen to my children. Venus once told the press, "My dad, when we first came up, he couldn't say what was on his mind or what he was thinking. For the record, that's what was on my mind and what I have always been thinking." Chapter 20. He would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through his Spirit in the inner man. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 16. Moving to Compton and taking the courts back from the gangs showed the family the strength of my commitment. When I got beat up in front of Venus by those guys in the park, I felt terrible, but it made Venus's commitment to me even stronger. It amazed me that she learned you could stand up and put your best foot forward no matter what happened. "Daddy," she said, "you know, one time I didn't want to come to this park no more." I said, "Well, maybe we won't. I'm not sure I want to go through this again." Venus planted her hands on her hips and said defiantly, "Oh no, we are coming back tomorrow." "You want to come back tomorrow and watch me get beat up?" She shook her head firmly. "Oh, you won. Didn't you know that?" I had to laugh. "Yeah, they got so tired of beating on me, they needed a rest." Every now and then, we still laugh about it. "No, Daddy, you won." It is important that parents show their kids they are worthy of the child's commitment. But here's the most important part. It must be the child who is committed. I will say it again. A parent must let the child be committed. Don't be committed for them. I've seen parents give their children the best clothes, the best shoes, the best rackets, and drive them around in Mercedes and Rollses, but when the children grew up, they were not committed. It had all come too easily. I saw kids out there in junior tennis I thought were better than Venus and Serena, but because of their parents' overcommitment, the child did not follow through. There was one boy who was on the road to being a professional tennis player. I called him the can't miss child. He can't miss. It's certain he's going to be a professional. But for all his promise, he never made it. When he had to play, he said, "I'm not accustomed to bringing my own water." His parents used to get the water for him. "I don't want to carry this bag. It's too heavy." His parents always carried the bags. When he needed self-motivation, he didn't have it. His parents always motivated him, so when he was alone, his motivation failed. A parent can be a guide, someone to get them through the jungle. Show them how to get to their destination, but don't bring them to it. You can't carry them. It will not be good for the child. The other important thing about commitment is that it cannot be taught if you are unwilling to risk failure. If you are so worried your children cannot handle failure, you have no faith in their character. Failure is instructive. They must be allowed to fail so they can learn how to pick themselves up again. If the only way to make sure your children succeed is to do everything for them, they will surely fail as soon as you're not there. Mental toughness comes from realizing failure is just a way of learning what more you need to know. Once I taught tennis to a girl with a problem. The problem was her mom. When the girl got sick, her mom was there. The girl ran short of money. Her mom was there. If she wanted to go out and she didn't have a ride, she called her mom. The mom never even thought about saying no. When the girl left to go to USC, she made it through because mom did all the homework. Mom was also the first one to say she didn't know why her child didn't make it as a tennis player. The child couldn't make it. She didn't have a chance because she never learned to make her own commitment. Her mom had done everything for her, and by doing so, had stood in her way. We overdo it in America when it comes to being committed to our children. We have to allow our children to be committed to themselves. Venus and Serena learned about commitment because they wanted to succeed. They lived in Compton. They came out of the ghetto. They saw kids carrying guns like school books. They had to take life seriously. It was the same way when I was a child in Shreveport. I had to be committed to myself. I had to know when and where and how fast to run and how far. There was real danger. The enemies were genuine. If I nurtured commitment in Venus and Serena the same way, by making them take responsibility for themselves. When Venus was 14 years old, we went to Oakland to play her first professional tennis tournament, the Bank of West Classic. She was so excited she couldn't wait to leave the hotel room for her match. Let's go, she kept insisting. Venus, do you have everything? I asked her. Oh yeah, I'm ready, Daddy. The child had a smile on her like a hyena ready to pounce, but her tennis dress was on top of the TV and she didn't see it. I asked her 3 times, you sure you have everything? Oh sure, Dad, I'm sure. Let's go. You checked your bag? Sure, let's go, Daddy. I nodded. Okay, let's go then, Venus. We walked out the door with her dress still sitting up there on the TV. She had left it. I thought about it all the way to the tournament. When we got on the practice court and started hitting, I thought, I guess she's going to play her match in those shorts she has on. Abruptly, Venus stopped hitting the ball and called me to the net. You know what? She began nervously. Let me tell you what I said. You left your dress on top of the TV. She was shocked. You knew it? I said, yep, I knew it. Well, why didn't you say something? She demanded. It was not my responsibility. It was yours, I said, and she started crying. Tears came pouring out of her eyes as she ran as fast as she could to the tournament referee. Of course, Venus had been getting so much media attention, the tournament officials wanted her to play. They even tried to get a police car to take her back faster to the hotel while they delayed her match. I didn't agree. She plays at 7, I insisted, quite relaxed about it all. It's after 7. She defaults. You have to teach her a lesson. Unfortunately, the WTA wasn't about to cut Venus Williams, but I would have had no trouble if they did. I still think they should have. Fortunately, a close call was enough. Venus learned her lesson. From that day forward, she was committed to packing her clothes correctly. I didn't have to tell her anything. She put together a check-off list and began using it and does the same thing to this day. If I had been committed for her and told her about the dress, it would have never had the same effect as her leaving it home and suffering the consequences. I'd have been like most of the parents of the girls and boys I see out there right now who can't manage their own affairs or be committed on their own. You can be committed to your child. You cannot be committed for your child. It is impossible for a child to be mentally strong if you are committed for them. A child without commitment will not grow up to be a responsible person because the responsibility left that child many years ago. We're making a mistake if we want to do more for our kids than what was done for us, whether we're rich or poor. Allow your children to make their own commitments. Let them earn it. Let them make mistakes. Mistakes are rarely harmful, and especially not at an early age. Once, I let Isha drive the family car at age 12 when we were delivering phone books. She ground up the gears and hit several parked cars and cost me $1,000. I never raised my voice at her. However, as far as discipline and respect in our household went, Serena put it quite simply and accurately. I always did what my parents told me to do. If my mom or my dad told me not to do something, I didn't do it. That's just how it was. There was no question. I just respected that and listened, and it was fine. A scientist once told me that if I kept going the way I was going, my daughters might be really, really great. I was also told by people that I was going to run my daughters crazy and they're not going to like you. I took nobody's word. I taught them all the things my mom taught me. My mom was my hero, and I think I'm pretty close to being Venus and Serena's hero. Serena took that to heart. I didn't want to feel like I ever failed my parents, she said. Sometimes it's hard. I make decisions. Should I do that? Was I raised this way? Am I making a mistake? I'm the kind of person that lives my life like that. My choices are very personal. I feel really fortunate. I've never felt like I needed something I didn't get. When I'm dating a guy, I don't think that I'm looking for something that my father lacked because he had everything, and that's so great. I feel awesome that I don't need someone to fulfill a role that was never filled for me. When you're younger as a female, you flock to your father. When you get older, you're closer to your mother. I still feel really, really close to my father, even though I'm older. We have a great relationship. There is an appreciation. There is a closeness because of what we've been through together, and a respect. Not only do I respect him, but I feel he respects me, which is weird because I don't feel like he has to or he should. I think it shows a really humble attitude that he does. The result? We get along great to this day. It is my happiest moment when my daughters call me and tell me they love me, or Serena dedicates her book to me, or when Venus sends me an email saying simply, "Thank you, Daddy, for making me a champion," or when they simply say, "Hi, Daddy," as a kind of sign-off when they're interviewed after a victorious match. No one can break us apart. We are a family. That's why I made the decision always to be their father and not their coach. Being a father can't be a losing position, ever. It was ridiculous when the media used to say my girls could do so much better if Mr. Williams wasn't around them, if he didn't take up for them. How could any father who loves his children fail to protect them? I could never be a coward to my children as my father was to me. I smile when I see the strength in my daughters. This generation is never going to have to crawl in the dirt the way my mother's generation did, wasting away in the cotton fields or working as janitors. I raised warriors. To toughen the girls' skin, I used to bring busloads of kids from local schools into Compton to surround the courts while Venus and Serena practiced. I had the kids call them every curse word in the English language, including nigger. I paid them to do it and told them to do their worst. As a result, I never had to take up for my daughters on the court. Serena takes care of herself. Everyone knows it. She'll tell you, "Just get the hell out of my face," or "I don't like what you did." Venus learned another kind of strength. Everyone on the tour knows that if Venus challenges a call, she probably has right on her side because she has a major league commitment to the truth. In 1998, Venus was playing a match and the umpire called a ball out incorrectly. I've never seen Venus get upset except for that day. She said to the umpire, "I'm going to tell you, you know that ball was in. The world knows that ball was in, and I know that ball was in, and I wouldn't stand here and tell you that ball was in unless it was in." One call in a lifetime of tennis didn't mean much, but Venus's words echoed around the world, a proclamation of honesty and integrity, all the things she stands for and believes in. All her life, Venus never missed an opportunity to show her commitment to honesty and loyalty. A week after losing the finals of the 1997 U.S. Open to Martina Hingis, she was supposed to play a much smaller tournament. She was so big and popular after the Open that the tournament officials questioned whether she would even show up. She simply said, "I gave you my word that I'd be here." That's Venus. She committed to that tournament and followed through. That's very important. If you make the commitment, you must follow through. Your commitment is you. Without a commitment, you're not very much in this life. While we were in Germany, Venus went into a store. When she came out, she had the strangest look I'd ever seen on her face. I said, "What's wrong with you?" "That man said something I didn't like, Daddy." "What did he say?" "I don't know. He said it in German. I'm angry I couldn't understand it." I taught them at an early age it's up to you to learn things you don't know. It turned out the man was complimenting Venus on her tennis. That very day, Venus bought a book on German to learn to speak it. Serena speaks French because when she was 12, She decided she wanted to win the French Open and felt that people appreciate you more when you can speak their language. I agreed. Serena, I asked her, do you really want to win the French Open and learn French? Can you make a commitment to do that? She said she could. Sometime later, we saw Jim Courier win the French Open and give part of his victory speech in French. Serena said to me, I know more words than that. I said, I didn't know you knew any French at all. She said, oh yeah, you remember you kept saying I could learn it. I went and got a book. I was going to surprise you. Unlike most parents of today, I did not immediately run out and buy her French lessons. I did not run out and enroll her in Berlitz. I simply said, it's up to you. It's not my job to push you into these things, not if you're serious. You've got to constantly measure children's seriousness about what they want. That's an important yardstick. You can see the serious nature of children if you watch them play. Children love to feel they can do something well on their own. Hey, I'm doing this without my dad wanting me to do this, my mom wanting me to do this. I was not about to get Venus a German book or Serena a French book. I wasn't about to get them any type of book. They were the ones who needed to keep elevating their lives. They had to realize the commitments they should make. I couldn't be doing it for them. You do something for a child, that's great. But somewhere along the line, the child has to start growing up and doing things for him or herself. Sports are a great way to teach confidence and self-reliance and can be a very positive influence on a young person's maturity, especially for girls. Changing from being a little girl to being a young woman can be a difficult time, but a great thing about female athletes is they can keep their minds on sports and not on distractions. According to Serena, I don't remember my whole puberty because I was in sports. I just remember I got really ugly for a minute, and then one day I woke up and I was much cuter. I was really ugly from 12 or 13. I was skinny. Maybe every girl thinks that. A lot of people preach sports are good for women, and I agree. It keeps your confidence up and you're not thinking about anything else. That helps when you start to date. I didn't date when I was a teen. We weren't really allowed to have boyfriends, and I didn't have one. But when I did start dating, my dad never took me aside and said, now this is someone you shouldn't date, or you shouldn't do this. He let me make my own decisions. I also think sports were good for the family. I was always on the courts with all my sisters around and my mother and father. It was a comfort, not a competition. It sounds too good to be true, but that's the way we were raised. Being Jehovah's Witnesses, we weren't competing with each other. We were supposed to love each other and inspire each other and not bring each other down. We weren't allowed to argue and fight with our sisters. We wanted what was best for each other and helped each other work to get it. Work is a great thing. There is nothing like the feeling of having earned something as opposed to having it given to you. As a boy, I had no choice but to work. It made me strong and gave me pride in myself. I was sure it wouldn't hurt my kids to work the same way. Too many parents let their kids stick out their hand for everything they want. That doesn't encourage commitment. In my opinion, it takes commitment away from the child. Even as toddlers, any money Venus and Serena earned went into their accounts. Some people said back when they saw the girls struggle to pick up those heavy phone books, that's the meanest father in the world. I really didn't see it that way. I knew that one day they would want money. Making a commitment to it would help them buy or save for whatever they desired. That's important. A lot of people don't think teaching their kids about money is a good idea. I think it's one of the most important things you can do. I am very good with money. I used to manage the money of some top-notch basketball players. No one ever lost a penny with me. Not one. When Venus and Serena signed their first big sports contracts, deals worth upward of $50 million, I made them sit at the same table as the agents and the lawyers through every negotiation until they understood every clause in every contract. Having my own company and funding everything myself taught me a lot about the tennis business. People were so foolish with money, it amazed me. I saw basketball players sign away their rights for their own clothes and shoes. I saw millionaire football players and boxers go broke. It was reported that former tennis star Arantxa Sanchez Vicario lost $60 million through mismanagement by her parents. I didn't make those mistakes. I could buy my daughters whatever they needed, so it wasn't hard to turn down all the initial sponsorship deals we were offered, or to tell the USTA we weren't going to play more than 1 or 2 of their tournaments a year, or that staying in school was more important than the USTA's need for new stars, or that their favorite slogan for young players, that travel was educational, was never going to beat a real education. John Everett, tennis great Chris Everett's brother, was an executive at International Management Group, IMG. He told me, "Mr. Williams, we can give you and your daughters shoes, clothes, or anything else you want." I reminded him, "If you look at them, they have shoes on." "How about rackets?" I said, "That's how you heard about them, right? They have rackets." I wouldn't let anyone give us a racket for free. No one could give the girls shoes either. I was committed to them. Commitment requires a strong self-image. Accomplishments and goals are the essential building blocks of self-image. They are a big part of what makes my daughters who they are. I still smile thinking about 3-year-old Venus and 2-year-old Serena dragging those heavy books across a big yard and up onto the front porch. When people say, "Boy, those girls got muscles you won't believe," I guess I should respond, "You would too if you started wrestling phone books when you were 2 or 3. The older the girls got, the more they increased their commitment to saving money. Serena was 5 when she opened her first savings account. Venus already had one, and Serena wanted to be exactly like her sister. They loved the independence money gave them and soon realized there might be easier ways to earn it. Venus used to love to go to Sears during Halloween, and both girls loved the little folks shop at the Long Beach Mall. Using their own money, they bought their own clothes. Venus had an unusual way of looking at shopping. When she got the receipt for a purchase, she called it a per paid. As long as she had the per paid, she thought she could take it back to the store and buy anything she wanted for that price. It wouldn't cost her anything because she already paid for it. I believe it set the tone for her and her sister to be the champion world-class shoppers they turned out to be. Sometime around 6 years old, Venus asked me, "Daddy, why is it you don't work hard?" I said, "I do work hard." Venus pointed to my home office. "Daddy, it looks like all you do is just sit down at that desk over there." At that time, I still owned the security service and had men all over the city guarding businesses under contract to me. Both girls thought it was really cool that I called my business Samson Security because Samson was in the Bible and, as Serena put it, the strongest guy ever. I used to work late keeping track of my employees, servicing new accounts, and adhering to all the different laws we operated under. The paperwork was endless, but I could do most of it at night, so it didn't interfere with teaching the girls. I knew the girls didn't understand the importance of writing contracts or sending out letters, but I liked their desire to go from being manual phone book laborers to my easy job of desk work. I said, "Venus, if you want a sit-down job, all you need to do is get someone with a building to hire you to protect it, and then hire 2 guys to be guards, one inside and one outside, and you can sit in an air-conditioned office and make money." She said, "You're kidding." I said, "No." "Show me, Daddy." I was amazed. She wanted to learn about business, but she made a commitment, and that was that. She sat there half the night learning how my business worked. Today, both Venus and Serena have their own businesses. They have never lost money through neglect or failure to know what was going on. Serena attributes this to several things. My dad always made us make our own decisions. He always made an effort to teach us about money and business. When I signed the Puma deal, I was at the table for every transaction and negotiation. I'm a really savvy businesswoman, and I learned a lot of that through him. We spent a lot of days and nights in the negotiation room, no matter how tired I was. I know he respects the fact that I never lost money, that my businesses run right, and I take care of all the people who I'm responsible for and who depend on me. That's a great attitude. Unlike so many sports figures who lose their money through bad management or poor judgment, I know Venus and Serena will always be in charge of their businesses, their tennis, their relationships, and their lives. They have the confidence they learned from the time they were children, but commitment and confidence are only the first steps in being champions. There is another truth I believe in totally. Even a champion can falter without faith. Context of White Supremacy. Feel free, chime in. Folks would like to share. The number to dial is 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943 pound. Press *6 if you would like to participate. The number again is 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943 pound. Press *6 if you would like to participate. If you are making note, we are picking up when the second audio segment, we'll be picking up on chapter 21. If you're following along on your own, chapter 21, that's where we're starting back up at. If you do not want to use your phone to participate, feel free. You can use the free Flash player. You can put the following URL in, which is tiny, tiny.cc/1 race, and that is the number 1. The address again is tiny, tiny.cc/1 race, and that is the number 1. Once you put that address in, click the link that is on the left side of the page. It says free Flash player. Click that. It will open a tiny window on your screen. On the top line, it is a drop-down menu. Select the number that I just gave out, which again is 760-569. 7676. On the next line, it will request the code. That code again is 564943. The final line, it will ask for a name. You can click random keys. You can use a nickname. If you're comfortable with your real name, that's fine too. Once you get all that information entered, click the little green button at the bottom, and it will connect you to the live broadcast. You should be able to hear us crystal clear, and it's the same procedure if you would like to participate. You will see the dial pad on your screen. Press *6. You'll hear the audio prompt. Press the number 1. I will see your hand on the switchboard, and we will get you on the line. With that, we will go ahead and nab hands from folks who have dialed in. I will say quickly that I have gotten as many links for the video of Mr. Williams when he is protecting Venus when she's being interviewed by a white man. I think it's for ABC 2020 or whatever the case may be. That has been posted more than enough. Anybody else, if you should feel inspired or inclined to put it on my Facebook page or email or Twitter, I have seen it many times now. I have seen it. Thank you kindly. Great illustration of Black self-respect and what a attempted counter-racist parent can and should do in protecting their offspring, protecting your Black children. Absolutely. And that is in the documentary film Venus and Serena. But I have seen it. Thank you kindly. Do not need anyone else to share that. Appreciate it. All the folks who dialed in, lines should be open. If you would like to chime in, feel free. And we have about 40 minutes or so. So don't lollygag if there are things that you want to get in and share. Lines should be open.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is Henry for greetings, Gus, to the other callers, listeners. Every time I listen to a portion of the book, I'm more and more amazed at Mr. Williams. A lot of times I don't agree with some of the methods that he uses, but you know, who am I? They work for him. And, you know, I'm just in amazement of the strategies that he used and the methods that he went about it. But I made notes that, you know, I found it odd that Venus said that she had never had a bed until she was 10 years old. You know, when you think about today, that usually 10 years old, most girls are getting their own rooms by that time. But you know, you can't speak ill of Mr. Williams' methods. Can I still be heard?
Yes, sir. We're hearing you.
Okay. I'm getting a call. I just thought that interfered. He started to train them early. I think he even said at 2 and 3, he had them hauling phone books. And I think I read somewhere later that he said that he would have started them training a little later if he were to do it again. He would have waited till they was about 6 years old, but he had, looked like he had all of the girls out, not only Venus and Serena, but the other girls also, because he let one drive the car. And, I started to think about that. If you are delivering phone books and then you let one of the girls drive the car, they caused $1,000 worth of damage. That just seems counterproductive to me, because you probably didn't even make $1,000 delivering phone books. But I think that basically, when I look at it deeper, it wasn't so much that he was trying to make money at this, but he was teaching them principles and training. Also made note of taking the girls to Skid Row, and then versus taking them to Beverly Hills after that. You can look, I guess you can look at it a couple ways, but sometimes homeless people, like the lady who came up, and her story was sad, but some of those people are victims of mental illness and, maybe drug addiction, alcohol, whatever the case. But I still think that white people are most to blame, because no halfway houses, no programs available, them being kicked out of mental institutions, onto the street without any means of support. And then you have a segment of society that end up in this position. And then to take them to Beverly Hills after that, where whites enjoy the better parts of this society that they have created and taken advantage of resources. I don't know. I don't know if you are giving them a true picture of the difference between a black person homeless on the street versus a person in Beverly Hills going down Rodeo Drive. But like I say, who am I? I also had a problem with the part about the kids in Europe and Asia going to school from early morning to late in the afternoon, which is not entirely true, because having lived in Europe for a while, the average child in the elementary schools go to school about 5.5 hours. It's compatible with the time spent in schools here. But I think his point was about commitment, that they are committed, more so than the children here. There may be some differences in recess, and then when you're in Europe, according to your scholastic aptitude, determines your position in life. So if you have the aptitude of a truck driver, then chances, you're going to be steered into that field. You can't turn around and be an Einstein, because your scores are not showing that. And so in this society, we would have a better chance of applying yourself, and then changing that lot in life. But anyway, I like the part about him teaching his kids and giving the family history and giving them something to go on about who they were and the history of their so-called race. And he was determined to be the type father to his daughters that he never had. Teaching commitment, planning, keeping a journal, and writing, is reminiscent of one of the studies that we did earlier. And another noteworthy point was when fear gripped him. It's so unusual that growing up he was fearless of the things that he encountered and did. And then when his wife went into false labor pain, he had this fear that gripped him that was beyond anything that he had felt before. I think that feeling may have come from the feeling of not being able to protect his family in a system of white supremacy. And I think that it may have been intelligent fear. And another point, I thought it was amazing that he helped manage some basketball players' money. An amazing person, and I'll mute my line and give someone else a chance. Thanks for taking the call.
Appreciate that. All of the other folks who have a hand up, line should be open.
Can it be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to, I came in late, but for what I did hear, really got my attention was how he was, what he would say, training his daughters and readying them to deal with business. But the way he was going about certain things confused me until I started thinking about conditional setups. And because, he's saying that he wants them to make the choices all along, but at the same time, he placed them in dangerous, very dangerous situations to learn tennis, a sport, while gangbangers are shooting up all around them and then fighting all around them. He put them in these dangerous situations to learn a sport. So it kind of really confused me. I'm like, you can go learn a sport at a nice, peaceful park, and at the same time, you don't have to have them in these dangerous situations. You're just learning the sport. So he kind of confused me with that situation that he was doing. But then I started thinking about conditional setups, and trying to really equate it to the same kind of conditional setups that we are in, that we're all black people are facing with the racism and white supremacy. And I guess it helped me bridge that understanding of, I can understand being in the ghetto. I can understand having the mindset of wanting to not be here or to get out of this kind of situation. And then you figuring out that, this is the way out for me. So I can put that together. But at the same time, he also taught them how to deal with business and business contracts. He kept stressing the contracts and how to pay attention to words within these contracts. I thought that was very astute of him to do that as well. And also the learning of the languages. But I do disagree with him is with the preparation for something. He's going to create the conditional setups and then get them ready for game time. And these are young children, and he knows that they're young children. And you're going to let them forget something that you could easily point it out and say, hey, you sure you didn't forget nothing? He could just point at a finger to help them out, but he didn't do that. So that forced them into doing a list of making, I think it was Venus, making Venus into a list person and making sure she did everything. And I'm saying to myself, you could have easily pointed that out. She could have still became a list person after that. You could have could have helped her write a list or form a list after that, you know. And that's what we helped. You know, we did the same thing to our daughter. She became a list person. We helped her write a list down to help her learn how to clean her room. So, I mean, I'm saying, you know, I guess we just got different routes of doing things, but, you know, when you got something as serious as this going on, and you know it's a racial issue all the time. There's not too many black females that play in this sport, and they want her to be there for a reason. You don't want to risk all that, and you can't even point a finger. So that's one thing I got right there. That's really the only one of the few things I have. That was the problem that, you know, that I could say you could have pointed the finger. But other than that, you know, he's got his methods. He's got his methods. I'll mute my line.
Appreciate that. Other folks who wanted to chime in, share anything, line should be. Oh, yeah. Other folks who wanted to chime in, share anything, line should be open.
Good evening, everyone. It's Karma. Hi, Gus. Hi to all the callers and listeners. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just a doubting kind of person, but it all sounds very wonderful. You know, I mean, it just sounds really wonderful. And raising children, so it just doesn't go quite that well, even with the best laid plans. But so anyway, I just wonder if maybe, you know, with his experiences with white people when he was really young, maybe it wasn't. Maybe part of the reason he moved from Long Beach, which back then would have been more upscale, to L.A., might have been to get away from white people. And then maybe he realized he needed to raise his daughters without that ever-present influence of white supremacy being, you know, just seconds away. And I did miss the last part, the last session, so I maybe I missed the part that would make it make more sense to me. And also, it just seems like if he said he had banked $800,000 by the time his daughters were born, and they were still doing the phone bank thing, and plus doing the security business thing, the phone book thing, and the security business. I don't know. That just I don't know. Just that seems a lot. And then plus, and the last thing is, I guess it's the last thing. But you know, having had some experience with the Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, in a couple of generations, I have some prejudice against them. I think they're just this side of Jim Jones, maybe a little to the left of Jim Jones, and especially regarding black families. And they're very intrusive. I don't know why in all of this, what happened to Kingdom Hall on Thursdays, and they so de-emphasize academics. I mean, you know, it's all a quest for Jehovah, and they spend all day Saturdays, you know, doing recruitment. It's a great time and position, and they get their rumors about the Jehovah's Witnesses don't spring from nowhere. It's because they have all of those commitments, and I don't hear any of that in the book, so that's missing. What else is missing? So anyway, there's just some pieces that I think should be there that aren't there, and that's I'm looking at. I'm a little distracted by what's not there. So anyway, that's just my thinking.
Right on. Folks have other comments, feel free, chime in. We have about 20 minutes before we get to the second audio segment. Speaking of things that are missing, I know for me, I think it was last week where it was kind of casually, and I mean briefly, mentioned that he had a son somewhere in all of this, and that kind of was brought up and never mentioned again. I think this week when Serena, when she was talking about how they had all girls, all daughters there and no sons, he did have a son, but that just has not been elaborated on at all. I thought that was interesting. Something I was hoping we were going to get more details on, but it's looking like we are not. To the point about the, I guess, comparison, juxtaposing him, taking them to Skid Row and then taking them to Beverly Hills. I don't know. That sounds like you would probably, in Beverly Hills, you would probably be, I mean, these would be like the super racist, super rich. These are the people that are really balling and benefiting from their practice of racism, white supremacy. Like, I don't know if that would be the end goal, what I would want my children or what I think black people should aspire to that lifestyle and living here. I mean, it's great to have resources and be able to get things that you want and all that. That's wonderful. But just that environment, I don't know. That's almost, I would say that is probably the environment that we're going to hear about in the next segment. That is the Indian Wells environment. The people that, you know, were acting a fool and calling him nigger, and them, the whole family, nigger and everything else. But at any rate, I also thought it was interesting because according to white people's own reports, for people who saw Bill O'Reilly and Jon Stewart this week having their conversation about racism, white privilege, they both agreed upon the fact that there's higher drug use amongst white people. This is pretty commonly stated. This is not news, not earth-shattering. I would venture that there's probably higher drug use in Beverly Hills than on Skid Row. I could be in error about that, but I would probably take that bet any day of the week. Higher quality drugs as well, prescription medications, the whole nine. I suspect they are balling out of control in the Beverly Hills area. Other things that stood out to me, him saying that he bought dozens of books when he would take his children to work. I think 909 talks about that all the time, the importance of getting young black people working and thinking in a business-like manner so that they have that entrepreneurial spirit at a young age, where he was taking them to work with him, and they had a lemonade stand, were selling cookies and doing the phone books. I thought that was very significant, as well as the books. He said he would get them dozens of books when he took them to work with him, so that they wouldn't get bored, and how much they love to read. Reading is way more important than watching television. Read. I also thought it was interesting his comments about the other, I guess, black neighbors or residents being jealous because he was doing so much with his daughters and taking them to work, and this being manifested, this what he termed jealousy, being manifested in them retaliating by burning down one of the buildings that he was providing security for, as well as the enforcement officials eventually being called on him for being abusive, and that just reminded me, I think, everything we've been hearing over the past month or so about Adrian Peterson, that you, as a black person, you can't win. Like you're abusive, whatever you do. You're trying to teach them how to play tennis, or you use corporal punishment. White people are going to come and intrude and threaten to take your children away. I thought it was great when he was talking about commitment, when he said correct use of time. Really appreciated that. I wrote that down in my notes in all caps. So important. That is something that I just don't think we have enough value on, particularly in the system of racism, where white people just encourage us to waste our time on all kinds of nonsense, the things that we focus on, the things that we think of as being important. And I thought it was just really great the way he broke that down in terms of you end up being around other people, and that can compromise the things that you're serious about, things that you should be focused on, and compromising your correct use of time. Just hugely important. Man, I know I was informed that some of the attempted parents who listen to the program, that they have their offspring listening to this book, and I really hope that they pay attention to that part. Like, value your time. That should be something that is way high on your priority list, and not just letting people waste your time with a lot of foolishness, things that are not really going to be of any value to you. It's not going to produce anything constructive. That's just nonsense. Like, really be on guard about that as a Black person. Journals, I think that's come up as well. I think 909. I think Melba Patillo Beals in Warriors Don't Cry. I think there have been several of the books that we've covered through the years, the importance of journaling and writing to kind of help you organize your thoughts, to kind of help you stay focused on what you are committing to, what's important to you. I think he said that was one of the things he did, things that you are committing to, things that are priorities for you, to write them down so that you kind of keep that in the forefront of your mind. Like, this is what is supposed to be a priority for me. And I think that can probably go a long way to help you being organized with your time as well. Let's see. I also thought it was his comments about the dolls. that was fantastic, where he said he didn't have a problem with dolls per se, but he just didn't want them focused on their source of value, or their end goal in life was to be a mom in pregnancy. I thought that was great too. I really appreciated that. His comments, everything that he shared about Oracene, I can only say again, I have just the highest regard for the fact that he, not just is there the absence of anger and bitterness in the book directed at Oracene, but it seems that he is extremely complimentary in the way that he talks about her, and just has lots of nice things to say about her. I think there's going to be more of that coming in the book in the second audio segment. That is fantastic. That right there, I think, is, in my view, extremely high manifestation of Black self-respect, just because in my view, it's so frequent. Everybody, white people, non-white people, where there's a divorce or there's a dissolution in a partnership, where the people just talk real bad about each other and have nasty things to say about one another and all that. That's just very common. You see this on particularly people that are in the spotlight, right? People that are on television and what have you. And just, I'm so appreciative of him having so many kind and complimentary things to say about his former partner, Oracene. The part I think Mr. Demery touched on in terms of his episode, and I think he talked about that in the interview he conducted on the BBC about his immense fear that he had about his child. And I definitely think that has played out over the past 2 months around the situation in Ferguson. I heard it last summer as well. Parents, attempted fathers and attempted mothers, and the fear that they have about not being able to protect their sons and daughters from racism, white supremacy. I think that is huge, and I think that's something that we should be more honest about, and that we should talk with our children about, because I just don't think that that's something that comes out enough in terms of just being true. I think he talked about that in the book, the importance of being honest with your children. And I think Mr. Demery Ford compared that, like he's, challenged the Klan. If we remember, like he put a Klan outfit on and went and confronted them with a shotgun and is stealing cotton and doing all this stuff, but realizing that he really is not going to be able to adequately shield his daughters from everything that white people have in store for them. That's just incredible. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think there was even a moment, Mr. S. when he was on the program previously, and he talked about talking with some fathers and how some of them broke down crying, just knowing that the awesome force that is white supremacy, how they really are no match in terms of being able to shelter their offspring, and just how it makes them feel so weak and vulnerable. And I also appreciated him being with her. That was another one, just hugely important. Hopefully people listening to that just really grasp the value of that, being with I mean, that is a huge part of your duty, and the correct use of time as an attempted husband, as an attempted father, being there with your wife throughout the pregnancy to be super supportive, being there every time at the hospital, just phenomenal illustration of Black self-respect. I don't know if I want to bring it up now because, like I said, I think this week there should be like unambiguous clarity about whether or not this is authentic representation of Mr. Williams. All of the references to religion or spirituality, all of these references, if they're true or not. In fact, I will table that because that's going to come up, and I think it'll be, at least for me, super clear after the second segment concludes. Anything else folks wanted to make sure we touched on? We have about 10, 12 minutes before we get in. If other folks that are listening would like to share anything, press *6 if you want to comment as well.
I just accidentally hung up, so I don't have nothing.
Right on, right on. Yeah, that will be at the forefront for me. The next chapter with the religion, although you, at least folks, if you were paying attention, the folks who were able to hear the entire segment at the beginning of chapter, I believe it's chapter 20. Yeah, he starts off with a Bible verse from Ephesians. I think that is going to play out for the remainder of the book, where he begins every chapter with a Bible verse, and that has not been the case previously. And I think we only are going to have one session. I think we'll finish this book next week. That has not been the case for everything that we have read thus far. That, in my view, at least, is interesting. That as it gets to the conclusion, he starts off every chapter with a Bible verse. But like I said, that'll be even emphasized even more in the next segment that we get to. Let's see.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering if anyone else thought that when they were mentioning tennis rackets and shoes with him, evidently that was sponsorships, and it seems that athletes are making quite a bit of money from shoe contracts and whatever, if say Nike, if you just wear a Nike dress, or if you wear some shoes or a certain type tennis racket, doesn't that seem counterproductive? I mean, it looked like he missed a lot of money there by not going along with the sponsorship. Or did I miss something in that? I think that was chapter 20.
It seemed pretty deliberate. I think he said kind of at the beginning, chapter 19, where he said that he didn't go out and seek sponsors, or he didn't seek assistance for people to help with the costs of training his daughters, that if he couldn't purchase it himself, then they went without. It seemed pretty deliberate, like he had some concerns about being beholden to these white people coming at him with these offers for shoes and rackets and all this other stuff. I do think that is a lucrative avenue for a lot of athletes, where they, exactly as you said, to get these endorsement deals to do this or do that. But it seems like he was very protective of his daughters and not wanting them to, not wanting to have white people's clutches on them, particularly at that early age when they were still young teens, to have that. Have them influencing what they're going to do, what they're not going to do, and that sort of thing. It seems like he was very concerned about that, which I mean, that seems logical to me. I know it's done a lot in other sports as well, and they do have a big voice. That white voice with that big check can end up having a greater influence than the black people that you're around. Even remember Old Whiskey, the black male who I kind of first started training him. He was talking about one of the black students that he had, and he was coaching him, and then he didn't acknowledge him when he came back. He might have had some legitimate concerns about, how much influence would come with those rackets and sneakers and whatever else white people want to provide.
Oh yeah, that helps, because it looks as though that he said something about they didn't want to play any more than one or two of those tournaments a year, the USTA and the International Management Group. Seemed like if they got their claws on you, you would be required to do what, evidently what they wanted you to do. So maybe he did have, a pretty good idea that he didn't want to get involved in that.
Yeah, I think that's been like a long-running white gripe with the Williams sisters for the duration of their careers, that they don't play as many tournaments as a lot of the other white competitors do. I think I'm not sure if it's Chris Everett. It's one of the white commentators. She wrote this scathing indictment of Serena Williams and telling her she wasn't taking tennis seriously enough. This is like in the 2000s. Now, she wasn't taking it seriously enough. She wrote like this open letter. And folks had pointed out, I think Bruce Fine and some of the other folks had pointed out that, Jennifer Capriati, she had been using drugs and got arrested and all kinds of things. And none of these white people wrote any sort of public letter to admonish them and tell them what they needed to do. But she felt compelled to do this for Serena Williams. But that's been one of the complaints, like people saying, well, they're into modeling or they're into all this other stuff. They're not serious enough about tennis. And you need to play more matches, where that's something that they've kind of said, the whole way along, that they're not going to go out and play every week or play every weekend, that they're, going to be very specific about which matches they play. And I think Mr. Williams also seemed to have that same concern, that he didn't want them to go overboard playing in all these tournaments early on. And I would say I see a lot of those same concerns with basketball, just all of the sports where people are getting their children involved and thinking it can be something lucrative, where it just goes way overboard, and that ends up being the sole purpose of life. I think that was important too, where he was saying that he wanted his daughters to be successful people first and successful tennis players. That was second to them being great people. But yeah, that's a long-running gripe. And even I think just at the U.S. Open that Serena Williams just won, they were saying that they think that has and probably will continue to contribute to their longevity, them being successful for so long, particularly Serena Williams, that they haven't played all these tons of tournaments that a lot of other athletes play, and they get burned out or injured or whatever the case may be, that they haven't done that. So they suspect that she'll be able to play longer at a high level.
I read somewhere, I think that the part where he burned the sheriff's house down, that was omitted in the book, but he admitted to doing that in an article that I read about it. He said one time after he was arrested, he looked the sheriff up, say he had a nice house too, say he put kerosene all around the man's house, set it on fire. But I guess you can't include everything. He's on a more positive note now. He's past his rough and tough, dirt poor beginning at this point.
Include everything, absolutely. I'm sure he had some other interesting stories from Louisiana or wherever else, even when he was in LA, that could have been included. But yeah, we have maybe 3 minutes more, and then we'll go ahead and get started. If there's any last comment, anything we didn't touch on that folks want to make sure we get in. I definitely, for this, I mean, already should be apparent from the first audio segment, but definitely the second audio segment, spirituality, religion is going to be pretty central in everything that we hear for the remainder of the audio today. Kind of keep that in mind, and the dialogue I think that we had last week, even the week before, about whether or not we think that that is an authentic representation of Mr. Williams, or if we think that's the ghostwriter. Definitely keep that in mind as we hear the second segment. But anything else folks want to get in? We've got about 2 minutes before we get started. Anything else?
I think Venus mentioned something about him naming his security company, Samson, another Bible reference.
Unless we think that is not true, I would say that might speak to the authenticity of these Bible references and the influence of Christianity, whether that is genuine or not. If you have the book, he has the Williams Life Triangle with confidence at the top, courage is the left corner, commitment is the right corner, and faith is the center, the crux of the triangle, all caps. He has that diagram in the book as well. If you, it's in the Kindle or the book, either or. But yeah, that will be explained in detail as we continue. I guess we'll go ahead and get to the second audio segment. Folks that are listening in, if you had something you wanted to share and weren't able to dial in, just jot it down. We should have ample time for folks to discuss for the second, after the second audio clip concludes. Again, we'll be picking up chapter 22. Chapter 22. Feel free, chime in. Context of White Supremacy, Mr. Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It. Context of White Supremacy, and it's chapter 21, so we don't get ahead. We're starting chapter 21. Chapter 21. Chapter 21. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear nor be afraid of them, for the Lord your God, He is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6. Faith is a belief in something unseen. We all have faith in some sense, but how strong is your faith? When Venus was 9 years old, she told me something that has impressed me to this day. She was number 1 in the girls' 10-year-old junior tennis division, and we were driving home from a tournament in our old Volkswagen bus. She said, "You know, I'm very good in tennis, huh?" "Yes." "I'm number 1. "Yes, you're number 1. "You know, I could beat McEnroe." At the time, John McEnroe was number 4 in the world and much older than Venus, and a man and a tennis genius, but she had faith that she could beat him. Faith gives you that kind of confidence. It is the inner strength that lets you believe in yourself and a positive outcome. It is the lack of fear of your opponent. It is the strength to seize the moment and play without fear. It is the depth inside you that you draw from to find peace. It is the certainty you will win. Yes, Venus, I believe you can beat him, I replied without hesitation. Should I have made her humble? Should I have said, now, Venus, you don't know if you can beat him, and I don't think you can beat him because he's older and stronger, but maybe someday, honey. No. A lack of faith wouldn't have helped Venus. In fact, it would have gone against everything she was taught. According to the Bible, if you have enough faith, you can move mountains. If she really believed that, she had every reason to believe that she could beat a tennis champion like McEnroe. When you believe in yourself, when you have a deep and all-abiding faith, you become an unbelievable person. You can do exactly what you say you can do. That's the type of faith Venus had even at 9. A complete faith, a total trust. I believe in my heart that women have more faith than men. My mom planted that in me. She made me believe not only in God, but also in women. I believe in women more than I do in men. Their faith is real. My mom told me that women sometimes are the last ones to speak, but we're such great thinkers because of it. I raised Venus and Serena with the faith my mom gave me, the idea that you can do anything you wish if you believe in your heart that you can. Venus believed in her heart that she could beat McEnroe when she was 9 years old, and I think if you asked her today if she could have beaten McEnroe then, even with the knowledge she has as an adult, I think she'd say, yes, easily. The kind of faith that Venus and Serena had started with the love of their parents and the devotion we taught them. We nurtured them to believe in themselves. Their faith also came from the trials of people like my mom, their grandmother, who began the family tradition of women being able to accomplish anything. You want an example of the complete faith my mom had? When my little sister Faye took sick with pneumonia, the doctor gave up on her. He said she was going to die. Mom told me she's not gonna die. Unsure, I said, okay. Sonny, I've been up for 3 days and 3 nights. I need to go to sleep. You watch her. If death comes, wake me up. Mama, who is death? What's it look like? She said, you'll know it, Sonny. Then her eyes started rolling back in her head and she started shaking. Death is here, she said, and went to sleep. About 30 minutes later, both of Faye's eyes went completely white. Mama, wake up. Get up here. Get up. She got up and prayed, and in no time, Faye was okay, her eyes clear and normal. Mama told me, now that's the faith we all should have in this house. If you had, you could have done it too. One of the most important building blocks in Venus and Serena's life was being taught their family history. They were given their place in a tradition of faith and courage that included a grandmother who could pray their aunt back to life. I personally saw the faith that stemmed from my mom. Back in the 60s, I was dating a girl who worked in a chemical plant. When the day came that I told her I didn't want to date her any longer, she had so much rage, she poisoned me. I was taken to Harbor General Hospital in Torrance, California, and my sister Penny called my mom in Shreveport to come to the hospital. When she got there, I was awake, but the doctors told her I was at the end. She asked them, Have you done all you can do for him? Yes, ma'am, we have. Is there anything else you can do? There's nothing we can do. He's dying. In that case, she said, take all them IVs out of him and all those bags and everything else. They protested, but she insisted. When everything was removed, she came to my side. Sonny, do you have faith that you believe you can get up and start walking today? In all honesty, I really didn't, but I didn't want to let Mom down. I said, oh, yes, ma'am. Then get up. She put one of my arms over her shoulder and the other over my sister's. Sonny, do you believe with all the faith you have that God can have you walking this afternoon? Yes, ma'am. She said, now you need to put your faith together, and if you really put your faith together, you'd be walking this afternoon. I tried to believe I'd be walking that afternoon. I prayed as I never prayed before. That same afternoon, I was walking. The record is on file to this day. Harbor General Hospital, Richard Williams. Without my mom's faith, I would have perished. Hers was a woman's faith, a faith that men cannot touch. Women can do anything. I taught my girls that. I never gave them any sense that they were less than boys, that they weren't as good, or that they were inferior or subservient to anyone in any way. On this, there were no grays. Their strength was an article of faith, clear as black and white. No child starts out bad. No child is born anything but good. Anytime you see a bad child, you're seeing the home that child came from. Home brands a child forever. Home is where kids learn faith or don't learn it. If you see a child doing drugs, go look at the home. If a child cheats and steals, go look at the home. If a child goes to jail, go look at the home. Long before Venus and Serena were born, I couldn't wait to teach them about the world, to give them faith in themselves, to make them champions. I even started talking to them about it when they were in their mother's womb. Oracene used to say they didn't know what I was talking about. I said, if they don't know, how come they kick every time I'm talking? I wanted to teach Venus and Serena that being a woman wasn't a disadvantage. It was an advantage. I saw what women could do. I saw what my wife could do, what she was able to achieve, how she could make a home so happy, how she stood right by my side throughout everything in life. Even before we met, she was a very committed person with a strong faith. I didn't have a dad or a brother, so I learned about strength from my mom. Oracene had the same kind of strength that she did. Beyond how beautiful she was physically, Oracene was equally strong as a person. You could feel the force of her faith inside her, and she inspired others with it. Her faith in what the girls could do stemmed from her faith in God. It really worked in her life. One day, Oracene and the kids and I were at the park, and I was a little upset with her. Now, I could really throw a baseball because I used to throw rocks in self-defense when I was a boy. She had a bat in her hand, so I threw some balls at her and taunted her, saying, I'm going to strike you out so easy. She kept insisting, I don't want to do this no more. I'm still going to strike you out. And I still don't want to do this. The next ball I threw at her, she hit over the fence. Oracene's faith fit so well with me because I would not have allowed myself to be around someone who didn't have faith. I hope she knows. I believe that Venus and Serena couldn't have had a better parent then and now. Oracene was centered in the tradition of strong women of faith. Her discipline did an awful lot to help me and all of her kids. She's a unique and very wonderful person. The highest compliment I can pay her is that she was just behind my mom in her faith. She just didn't have the same roots of struggle. When I was a kid, I heard an old lady named Miss Mattie had died, so I went to tell my mom. Mom said, "She's not dead." I thought Mom was crazy till they took Miss Mattie to the ice house for the autopsy. Miss Mattie rose up and said, "What the hell you all trying to do?" Oracene is as wise in that same tradition in a modern way. What happened to us? Well, the power of money and success drives professional sports in America, and if you are not careful, you can easily succumb to it. Some deal well with wealth and find it easy to maintain their balance and stay on top. Others fall prey to the ugly side of fame and fortune and the invisible hand of pressure that accompanies it. The old saying is correct. It's harder to stay on top than it is to get to the top. I regret the presence of so much success made it impossible for us to continue our relationship. Great success brought with it problems we had never imagined, some of which we were unable to face wisely. No one can prepare you for such events, and I lacked the maturity and understanding required. I guess it was easier to stand by each other when we were struggling than when we succeeded, especially to such great heights. In any event, no matter what our problems, Oracene is an amazing force for good in this family, and she remains one of the best women I have ever known in my life. It is important to remember that faith connects to every element of the Williams triangle and connects each element to the others. Chris Everett is a great example when you're talking about faith and confidence. When she was 13, I saw the faith she had that she would win. She was one of many people of faith I have seen over the years, and it's essential to their victories. Alice Marble, winner of 18 Grand Slam championships, despite personal tragedies, had so much faith she was able to stand up against the whole world. She championed 23-year-old Althea Gibson when the white establishment refused her entry into the 1950 U.S. Nationals. Marble, who had won the Nationals 4 times, wrote in the July 1950 issue of American Lawn Tennis magazine, "If Althea Gibson represents a challenge to the present crop of women players, it's only fair that they should meet that challenge on the courts." She added, "If tennis is a game for ladies and gentlemen, it's also time we acted a little more like gentle people and less like sanctimonious hypocrites." If Gibson was not allowed to compete, she concluded, then there is an irreducible mark against a game to which I have devoted most of my life, and I would be bitterly ashamed. Due to her stand, Gibson was given entry into the 1950 U.S. Championships, becoming the first African American player to compete in a Grand Slam event. Althea Gibson herself went through so much. She could throw a ball as hard as a man, dance better than a man, hit the golf ball better than a man, and struggled against racism all her career, yet she never lost her faith. Faith breeds confidence. Confidence comes from a fundamental belief in spirit and in God. It is vital to success in life, in tennis, in investing, or even in cutting the lawn or whatever you set out to do, big or small. You gain all the confidence in the world when you believe. We sometimes live through trials and tribulations. Life goes wrong from time to time. Faith gives you the confidence to carry on. I wanted my children to have faith. I believed faith was essential to rearing successful children. Faith and confidence work hand in hand, side by side. If you don't have confidence that you can do something, you're never going to achieve it. It's where the strength to finish the match comes from. The stronger children's faith, the more confident they are, the more attractive they are as friends and models, and the more they exhibit that confidence among their peers and adults. If you solve things for your children, they cannot learn to have faith in themselves. The only thing they will have faith in is you. They will not have faith in God because their faith has never been tested. It has been stolen. Too many parents interfere with their children and prevent them from taking responsibility for working out their problems. Therefore, the children's faith does not grow. They don't get stronger. They get weaker, more needy, and more dependent. I saw lots of tennis parents get upset with their children, more so than in any other sport. She should be doing better. I wish he would take more responsibility. I wish he would practice harder. She could have beaten that girl if she played harder. Then the parents impose more rules or harsher punishment, more stress, more damage. Where did the responsibility go? They took it away. The young person doesn't have enough experience at trial and error and making mistakes to know what is right or wrong. Serena told me it was very important to her to feel we had faith in her as she was growing up. She explained it this way. As we got older, my dad trusted us. He wasn't the kind of parent who told us, you have to do this or you have to be that. Even when my mom moved out, we always did what we were supposed to do without being told. Venus had a car at 16 that she bought herself, and we went to the movies and to practice. We did everything. He trusted us, and we didn't do anything bad because he trusted us. The faith he put in us made us not have to manipulate him. He gave us expectations that we wanted to live up to. That was the way we were raised. When I got my first check at 16, and it was a check for $1 million as a signing bonus, he just gave it to me. Usually, parents take the kids' money away or try and manage it. He just gave it to me and asked me if I was going to be like some athletes and go broke, or was I going to make the right decisions? Now that's faith, and I've always tried to live up to it. I plan to do a lot of the same things when I am a parent. When Venus played the 1997 U.S. Open, she was interviewed on a major television show right before the final against Martina Hingis. It was a conversation with the host. She said, "I don't have to come home now, Daddy, 'cause I'm in the final." I'd been telling her to come home because she needed to be back in school. "Venus," I said, "I know you're 17, but you can't live in my house and not go to school." Venus did not see it that way. "Daddy, did you see my grades? How I hit the ball?" "Yeah, I seen all that, Venus, but my deal with you was until you turned 18, you had to be a college student if you living in this house." Now, some might say I was contradicting myself. I helped make her a professional tennis player, and I wanted her to be number one, but I also wanted her to have a college education. I was so afraid of what I saw in other young tennis players that sometimes I wished I had never put her in tennis. I had seen parents abuse their children, make bad financial decisions for them, or put them under so much pressure they had emotional breakdowns. I had seen kids come from the best neighborhoods with damaged wrists from too much practice. How painful it is when a kid comes to you and says, "Mr. Williams, does your daughter get a whipping if she loses like I do?" I got so worried it came to a point where I wanted Venus and Serena out of tennis. Venus said, "Oh no, I'm not getting out of tennis." There was a magazine in Florida called Florida Tennis, and they wanted me to write for them. I wrote 3 articles. One of them was called "There's a Life Beyond the Baseline." I wrote that if you don't learn there's a life beyond tennis, you will go through life with nothing in your head. During those days, the average education on the women's tour was a junior high school education. I was not going to allow that to happen to my kids. I told Venus that if she didn't go back to school, she couldn't live with me in my house anymore. Venus decided to buy her own house. A lot of people predicted she would move a long way away. She had engineers and architects to help her get the house together. She looked all over for a location. She talked about other states. In the end, she bought a huge house about 5 miles from mine. Then I found out Serena was moving in with her. I said, "Serena, you only 16. "I'm going with Venus," she said flatly, and that's how they both ended up moving out of the house, because I wanted them to be full-time students and they wanted to play professional tennis. Looking back, I can only feel it was wonderful that they did both and did them so well. They had faith that their way was right and the confidence to back it up. They had grown from toddlers to tennis champs and were going forth to live their own lives with faith and courage. Nothing could please a parent more. However, I didn't really know what guts they had until we faced the crowd at a place called Indian Wells. Chapter 22. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Psalm chapter 27, verse 14. Courage is a magnificent thing. It's the strength of heart to triumph we find within us. Courage comes when you do not have the best of everything. It comes when you have the worst of everything. Courage comes when you set your life goal to make something out of nothing. It comes when you are laughed at and belittled but keep on going. Courage comes when you are picked on but fight back. Courage comes when it seems like everyone has turned against you and does not understand you and leaves you standing all alone, and still you go on. Courage is hope. Courage is going one more step while the next person falls short. Courage is being able to smile when the whole world is against you. Courage is when you put trust in what's right and come out victorious. Even if you don't, you take heart in the knowledge you let God's will be done and prayed for your enemies. I saw true courage on Saturday, March 17th, 2001, when the community of Indian Wells, California, disgraced America. Indian Wells was far from the average community. Compared to Compton, which my family and I had driven from a week earlier, it was different as day and night. Located in Riverside County in the middle of the desert, framed by the beauty of Santa Rosa Mountains accented in snow, Indian Wells was simply perfect. The perfect sunset, the perfect stadium, the perfect tennis tournament. The grass at Indian Wells was greener than any I'd ever seen before. Palm trees stood like soldiers at attention along perfectly clean streets, with lights shining on them bright as diamonds. Flowers blossomed in every direction. Rolls Royces, Bentleys, Alfa Romeos, Jags, and Mercedes sat casually in the spotless driveways of exquisite mansions. In a place like this, a black man had to be on his best behavior. People who lived in this community did not tolerate foolishness. Unlike Compton, staggering drunks or drug addicts would find no comfort. There were no gangbangers here, no Crips, no Bloods. We had come here to play the Tennis Master Series tournament. It was going well. The girls were winning, their stars steadily rising. The world seemed perfect. No act of violence could occur here. Open-minded and liberal, the people here could never show racism or prejudice. Unusual for me, I felt welcome, till things suddenly exploded in a way I could never have predicted. Venus and Serena both won their quarterfinal matches and were due to face each other in the semifinals. It was going to be a closely watched match. Two young female tennis players, sisters who burst upon the world stage and challenged the white tennis establishment, were going to challenge each other. I always discussed strategy with the girls before a match, but with Venus playing Serena, there was no strategy. Each one would do her best. During practice, my only advice was have fun. The only cloud on the horizon was that Venus had hurt her knee during the quarterfinal match against Elena Dementieva. We watched her carefully during her practice session. It was increasingly painful. After practice that day, enthusiastic fans surrounded the girls, pleading for autographs. The crowd got so large, Venus and Serena were whisked off by security onto a waiting golf cart and taken to their dressing rooms to prepare for their match just hours away. As my daughters continued their success, I had a responsibility as their father to make sure they kept everything in perspective, mentally, emotionally, and physically. That's why injuries were such a dilemma. Thousands of people had paid good money to see Venus and Serena play, and hundreds of tournament organizers had worked for weeks or months and had millions of dollars at stake. How could we disappoint all those people? Yet, I also had a responsibility to Venus herself. If Venus played hurt, she risked permanent injury and potentially the end of her career. That's what we faced right before the tournament semifinals. Knees are a tennis player's nightmare. With a knee injury, you can't play anywhere near the top of your game. My rule was firm. The girls decided for themselves if an injury required them to withdraw. They knew their bodies best. Venus was really in pain. 3 doctors examined her before the match, and while she made it clear she keenly wanted to play against her sister, they advised her not to do so. The doctors were not concerned about the fans, the sponsors, or the television network. Their only concern was Venus's physical ability to perform without causing more injury. Venus notified the tournament trainer that she had to withdraw. I believed she made a mature and good decision. We did everything by the WTA book, but the tournament officials didn't want Venus to pull out, so they kept stalling. They waited till just 5 minutes before the match was scheduled to go on before they finally announced that Venus couldn't play. It got nasty almost at once. Now, if Venus said she couldn't play, she couldn't play. Both Serena and I knew that without doubt. But suddenly we, and especially me, were accused of everything from fixing the match to manipulating the rankings. It was all foolishness, but when we were interviewed after the cancellation, the antagonism of broadcasters was palpable. The fans' anger simmered like a volcano through the following day, and by the time we arrived to play the finals, the eruption was inevitable. The heat of it fell on Serena, Venus, and me. When Venus and I entered the stadium, we were booed steadily. The media speculated about why the crowd booed, but to my knowledge, not one spectator was ever interviewed. Paying customers have every right to voice their opinion at a sporting event, but tennis etiquette has always been required. Why was such rude behavior so uniformly defended? The chorus of boos that cascaded through the stadium sent a powerful message to America, to Venus, to Serena, and to me. It was a message from the past, one America tries to put behind it but can never forget. It was a snapshot from the days when the open humiliation of the black race was accepted without question. Accusations and racial epithets flew through the stadium. No one questioned the unruly behavior of the fans. The only thing in question was our character and integrity. My daughters were treated without an ounce of dignity or respect. They were treated like criminals. How Serena managed to come out to play and how Venus managed to keep her composure without breaking down can only be credited to their spiritual strength and the training they received as children on the courts of Compton. Deep down inside, I kept asking for a higher power to lead and guide us as we sustained the verbal lashing. My mom always taught me when white people did or said something I did not approve of to hold my head up high and ignore them. I never liked doing it then, and I didn't do it often or well, but that was exactly what I did that day. I did not know that events at Indian Wells were destined to follow me wherever I went, from radio stations in Los Angeles to newspapers in New York to television stations throughout the world. The talk was about Richard Williams and his tennis-playing daughters. The media called me a racist and the tennis father from hell. They said I was manipulating the powerful tennis industry and I needed to be silenced. He's destroying his daughter's marketing and advertising abilities, they cried. Venus and Serena need a new coach. Richard is in the way. Why doesn't he just let them play? I tried to respond. It turned out I was damned if I did, damned if I didn't. The powerful mass media that disseminate information at the speed of light were relentless. The following is an excerpt from a Los Angeles Times column by Bill Dwyer, reprinted in What Happened at Indian Wells by Joel Drucker, published on ESPN.com on March 11, 2009. If these situations are truly just happenstance, if Venus's knee truly did get sore just in time for her match with Serena, if all this is just the product of a bunch of jealous competitors on the women's tour and a bunch of dopes with overactive curiosity glands, then why don't the Williamses set the record straight? When they were asked about the rumor and innuendo that constantly swirl around them, they respond with smirks and half-hearted denials. They deny, but with less than the normal conviction, even anger one would expect in the face of such serious issues. How about pounding on the table and saying it ain't so? How about some tears, some anger? Context of White Supremacy. We did not conclude chapter 22. So feel free, make your mark. We'll be back next week to finish off chapter 22. Fascinating segment. I will post the article that he referenced by Mr. Joel Drucker. I'll put it on my Facebook page. I'll tweet it as well. Folks want to check it out from 2009, what happened at Indian Wells. At any rate, feel free to chime in. The number to dial, 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943-pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. The photograph, the top photo that they have on the page for this article, it has Serena Williams, and it says, its caption saying Serena Williams admitted she was unaware of any racial slurs at Indian Wells in 2001. And then it goes on to quote her as saying, I don't know if race has anything to do with this particular situation, but in general, I think, yeah, there's still a problem with racism in America. At any rate, it has a lot of different sources from the New York Times, LA Times, what have you. You can feel free to check it out if you are so interested. And I would definitely encourage folks to watch the match. It is on YouTube. You can see the entire match for yourself and come to your own conclusions. All of the folks who dialed in, who have a hand up, should be with us. Karma, Mr. Demery 4, Tapella, feel free, chime in.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll start out with the beginning. I can remember back when John McEnroe was playing, and the only thing I can say is, that sounded a little far-fetched, about her being 9 and beating John McEnroe. And even if she had the ability to do that, I think that John McEnroe was probably the only tennis player that I've known of that could shout and break rackets and get right in the judges' faces and not get thrown out of matches. So he would probably have thrown a tirade and ended up getting his way anyway, even if she did beat him. But he went through a lot, to stress faith and confidence. I think it went on too long, really. And then we had some Lazarus type references where I think the dead got up and walked, and he was brought back to life from near death, and, but actually what I really wanted to comment on was the Indian Wells deal, because, that's a prime example right there of racism, white supremacy, when you got two of the greatest tennis players in the world, and their father's there. And, this should have been a celebration. It should have been a highlighted event where they were uplifted. And if one of the players was injured, just like now, or some great sporting event, if a player can't go, he just can't go. He's injured. It's no question about that. But they going to question the fact that she was hurt. All those jeers and obscene shouting and trifling, terroristic behavior by all those white people, and then turn everything around to make the girls, the tennis players, and the father look like the culprits. Only a system of racism, white supremacy could do something like that and then get away with it, because I can remember back during that times that he was the fall guy. Venus and himself ended up being the fall guys for that, when in actuality it was the way that all those white people were acting, at a major event. It should have been broadcast, recorded, and even talked about differently right today. But it just goes to show the way this system works, and then how it can turn atrocious behavior into making the victim look like they were the bad guy. So I'll mute my line, give someone else a chance to talk. I wanted to say a little bit more about his mother, but she's, I guess she gave him, some tools that helped him along the way. So just kudos out for his mom. I'll mute my line.
Julia Metcalf Williams, Serena and Venus's grandmother. Any of the other folks with us on the line have anything they wanted to add?
I think I've learned something, that the officials, he said the Indian Wells incident followed him around forever, but it wasn't for the reason I thought that it would follow him around. He said it was because the white people were upset with him for not because he deigned no reply to their accusations. It's just he didn't defend himself, really. They didn't like that he wasn't vigorous in defending himself, and they were just really put out about that, and they just followed him, that they were upset with him about not defending himself vigorously enough in the face of all their nasty little accusations. I thought that was a one-off from something that happened to me, because, the little old lady's running around town telling everyone after she trashed me in public and I said next that I was abusive towards her. So I think that this really rattles white people's cages, that you don't, you just don't respond to them in any way. And I never noticed that before, but I think it's a big deal with them when you just, go next.
Yeah, when he says that this continues to follow him around, this happened in 2001, this continues to be big news, like 2014, 2013. There'll be big, huge articles. Like, I think this tournament is in March or April. It's in early spring. But they will make a big to-do of it. Are they going to go back and all this? There are tons of articles online where people have written about this. They have another one at Sports Illustrated, Bruce Jenkins. It's time for the Williams sisters to return to Indian Wells, and going on about, this is all water under the bridge, and, let's just walking around holding a grudge about everything. He even has one quick paragraph I'll read. Despite Richard's fierce assertions, there is considerable evidence that the booing centered on Venus's controversial withdrawal and was not based in racism. Of course not. As Venus arrived to watch the final, there was no sign of a limp, no rap on her controversial right knee, wrote Selena Roberts in the New York Times, adding that few wanted to forgive Venus because her penchant for withdrawing from tournaments had ruined her credibility. Few wanted to believe that her exit was not part of a fix conjured up by her father. And it just goes on in that same tone about niggers, get over it. It wasn't racism. Get back out there and play. Entertain us at Indian Wells. This is racist suspect Bruce Jenkins, and this was written in March of 2013. But yeah, this is ongoing, and even the comments that we ended on in the report, where the white guys saying they didn't defend themselves, you didn't show enough anger, bang on the table and yell or give us some I mean, the absurdity of it all, as though an angry black person ever goes over well with white people. Then it would have just been, oh my God, these angry nigresses are going to get up here and get sassy. I mean, it's just tacky and trifling all the way through. White people misbehave, mistreat non-white people, and somehow it's the victim's fault. You provoked this behavior, and that's even something that I've been saying. I've been kind of paying attention to, because I feel like I've been hearing more of that over the past month or so. And it seems like these have all been sports related, but they said that the protesters in Ferguson, that they provoked the white people who made all the racist chants saying, let's go Darren Wilson and go back to Africa, and this wouldn't be happening if you all had jobs, and all this other, that the black protesters provoked this racist behavior. And I even heard the same thing suggested about Hannah Strong, the white soccer player at Syracuse University, who called a black person a faggot-ass nigger on camera, and it was suggested that maybe the black people had provoked her. Maybe they did something to upset her and to make her behave in that way. But that seems to be being suggested more regularly, that black people somehow provoke white people to be racist and terroristic. Any other comments folks wanted to make sure they got in? The religious aspect, it's tough on Indian Wells because we didn't really get the full brunt of it. Like, he gives a lot more specific details that we'll get next week about things that he heard and what happened. I can only, again, encourage, you should watch the video. If you have children, you should get them and check it out, the full match online. It is an incredible, despicable, but incredible display, because she did win the tournament, Serena Williams. She did win the championship despite of racist antics. And if you watch it, to keep in mind, tennis is the shush sport. This is not football or basketball where you go get drunk and yell and curse the whole time and shout and mix. I mean, this is not tennis. I mean, this is supposed to be the most civilized, where we have standards and decency. This is the king sport where you come and you give the golf applause almost, and they shush you if you're making noise while they go to play, where this was allowed to go on and even continues to be defended almost 15 years after this originally happened. But we'll get more details on that next week. I definitely wanted commentary as well about the religious aspect, faith, that he touches on, because I thought that was important. We had talked about that before and saying, well, maybe this is the ghostwriter with all these biblical references and what have you, and this influence of Judeo-Christianity. Maybe this is not authentic. did folks have thought that we think this is, because I mean, it feels like we got a pretty heavy dose of that this week, particularly in the second audio segment. Do folks think that this is an authentic representation of Mr. Williams?
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. It's interesting that you brought up that part about the faith, because that's what I wanted to chime in on, especially the part where he was referencing the acts of faith that his mom displayed. I thought it was interesting, especially how he referenced her, I guess, reviving or bringing people, from death, which showed him or helped him to increase his faith. I also thought it was really interesting, just the respect he had for women and the women in his life, his mom, Orsine, and the impact that they made. I did think it was interesting, though, how, it was clear that he loved Orsine and really valued their relationship, because he speaks so highly of her, and yet, he did, as you mentioned before, he did have a child with a son, but we don't hear too much we didn't hear pretty much anything about the woman that he was with in that situation. So I just wanted to just bring out that point. That's what stuck out to me, just his mother and how she really, demonstrated, I guess, miracles, so to speak. And I'll mute my line. Thanks.
Right on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, did I miss something? Was his grandmother a Jehovah's Witness? His mother?
I don't think he labels her as a Jehovah Witness. I could be in error, but I don't recall him ever saying that his mom was a Jehovah Witness. Maybe she was, and maybe he just didn't say it explicitly, but I don't remember him using that term to reference her before.
Well, just anecdotally, I've seen there was one faith healing, and he died, and then there was another faith healing, and I intervened, and she lived. So there's only been two that I've had any experience
with. Any of the folks that kind of took the position they felt that this was the ghostwriter's influence, I'd be particularly interested, because that would be a lot. If you think what we heard this week, if you think that was ghostwriter, that would be a lot, because this seems to be kind of a core element of what he's presenting this week, in terms of him saying that faith is the center of the Williams value system, that faith connects all the other values, and faith is what allows you to be courageous and to have commitment, that faith is at the core of all of this. And him going back to his mom, where, she had so much faith, and that's where he got his faith from, and him saying that women have so much more faith than men. Do we think that's the ghostwriter, or we think this is authentic?
Well, given who Mr. Williams is, I don't think that he would allow the ghostwriter to bastardize his story.
I think that they were probably working together to make a realistic final draft, to accomplish something from what they were saying, because somehow they worked humor in there, because when his mom said that Miss Maddie was not dead, and then they was wheeling Miss Maddie in to do an autopsy on her, and she goes, "What the hell y'all trying to do?" I mean, that's got to be one of the funniest parts of the book to me. I mean, so I don't think you could make that up. But then again, who knows? But then somehow they work that in to show that, the old saying, it's harder to stay on top than it is to get to the top. I think that it's jumping around quite a bit, but it's stories that he probably remembers or that he said, and then they kind of weaved it all in together to make this come out the way that it did. That's my take on it.
Carmen,
I have a question. Oh.
I just wanted to ask real quick, Carmen, to make sure I was hearing correctly. Did you say you thought, based on what we've read from Mr. Williams, that he would allow Bart Davis, who is the racist suspect ghostwriter, that he would allow him to bastardize his autobiography, or he would not?
He would not. He would want it to be authentic. He would think that it was good enough, authentic.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure what I was hearing was correct. Okay. The female caller?
Well, you actually just answered my question. I was going to ask if the ghostwriter was white or non-white. And now that it just kind of seems to me that just based off of my experience with actually writing books and knowing quite a few authors, that when you're trying to sell books, and because he has a ghostwriter, some of it does sound to me exaggerated. So I would not be surprised if it's not as authentic, and the ghostwriter added a little bit for dramatic effect. That's what keeps the book interesting. That's what keeps people, intrigued. And so I would not doubt at all that some of this might possibly be exaggerated to keep it interesting. And those are just my thoughts.
With the faith aspect specifically, though, because I think that was a point of emphasis that some people felt that they didn't think Mr. Williams was into all the Christianity and what have you. They thought that was ghostwriter influence. Do you think that's him, or do we think that's authentic representation of Mr. Williams?
I think it might be a little exaggerated, simply because at the beginning of the book, where he went into great detail about his mom and how, some of the challenges she went through back in Shreveport and things like that. And I didn't get that idea of her as in the earlier chapters. It's just when he's, kind of pointing out, it just kind of ties in now with his daughter. So I don't know. I think that if it was as authentic, maybe that picture would have been painted earlier in the book, especially when we got such a lot of the chapters was, really showing who his mom was when he was young. So I think I don't know. In my opinion, I think it was just to beef up this chapter, and in my opinion, because it didn't seem authentic to me. I'm sorry.
Pumpkin sent in an article. This was from 2012. Serena Williams will never date again unless he's Jehovah's Witness, where she says, I think it's this is all in quotes. I think it's important when you marry to be evenly yoked, she said, quoting 2 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 14. The verse warns Christians not to be entangled with unbelievers. I've been studying to be a Jehovah's Witness, so I go to Kingdom Hall. She told the publication, I grew up a witness, and it's what I know, and we teach things that come from the Bible. 2012. You can check it out online. Serena Williams will never date again unless he's a Jehovah's Witness. Even this week, I feel like there are spots where I think this looks like fingerprint from the ghostwriter. I thought it was even ironic. I had just said Chris Everett, she wrote this, in my view, racist letter, could be in error, but I suspect this racist letter admonishing Serena Williams, and then she gets mentioned in the book as being a great illustration of faith. Now that, to me, I think is the ghostwriter. I think one of our listeners, she just tweeted, she said she thinks that the ghostwriter's influence is minimizing white people, and that's going to come up in the rest of this chapter, chapter 22, next week, when he talks about the white people at Indian Wells, minimizing white people so it doesn't come across that all white people are bad. And I think that's something that we pointed out numerous times throughout the text. But that was huge illustration right there, where Chris Everett is a great illustration of faith and just wonderful person. And it's like, wow, this would be the last person I would reference for someone who has admonished his daughter publicly and writing this letter and what have you. And I think she's so phony. Like when I see her, they had her, she was conducting interviews and doing some of the commentary when Serena Williams won the U.S. Open. And to me, she just strikes me as being extremely phony and fake. And I suspect very racist. It just comes across. And that's for a lot of these white people when you hear them, when they're in a position where they have to talk glowingly about a black person and be complimentary, and they can't just be degrading them, where it just seems like it takes so much effort for them to do this. And then I think he had another white person that was, I guess, helpful in getting Althea Gibson being able to compete in one of the tournaments in the 1950s. Those types of examples and some of the, I think, illustrations we pointed out before, where it was a homeless white person. He was going to invite him to his house. This white person who helped him and give him a lot of information about business. I think all the way back when he was still in Shreveport, the white doctor who allowed him to work there and who was really helpful, he said. I think those sorts of illustrations, I think, are the emphasis of the ghostwriter, probably to keep white people who might have bought this book and be reading it so that they will continue reading and not just, oh my God, I'm not going to listen to this nigger bash out all these white people. But the faith aspect, I mean, he has charts. Folks that are looking, he has charts with that. That seems like a bit much. I'm not sure that Mr. Williams would, as Karma said, I'm not sure that he would allow some white person to come in and just give a really counterfeit narrative that is not accurately representing who he is as a person and what he's tried to instill in his daughters. And then the fact, too, I think that you have these public reports where it seems Serena Williams and Venus, they talk about being Jehovah's Witnesses publicly, that would also seem to further corroborate what's in the book, but could be an error. Any other thoughts folks want to get in?
Yes, I want to say one more thing. I know I've spoken before about being shocked about my nephew already having will not be having children, which I find really strange at 10. But since I've gone to the meetings, I looked around, I noticed that the black people there, they are not getting married. They are not. I'm not seeing that encouraged. I really don't think I'm imagining it. I don't see that encouraged amongst the black members who are there. I see the white families seem to be intact. It's just something I just noticed recently.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, I was listening, but I was also doing some other stuff at the same time. I was just wondering, I don't think that faith in one's self and faith in one's abilities is it doesn't have to be immediately put together with Christianity or. I know he talked about he was doing the Bible verses too, but I think when he was talking about Serena's faith in herself, or was it Venus's faith in herself? I think that seems like really practical advice to me like that anyone can use outside of Christianity even, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, for instance, that video that everyone kept posting on your wall, I guess, like, he basically came to the defense of his daughter's peace of mind, like where she had faith in herself. She was talking to a reporter saying, you know, she's the best, basically, and the reporter was like, "Oh, are you sure about that?" And and her father came to her defense in a very assertive manner, and he was protecting her faith, I think, and I think like I personally think that you know, that it seems like good advice to me. Christianity aside, like, I don't even have to think. Yeah, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I don't dispute that at all. I definitely think you can have faith and be spiritual, and it does not necessarily have to be connected to Christianity or specifically Jehovah's Witness. That's what he's talking about in the book. I would submit, I think the way this book is written, that it is directly connected to Jehovah's Witness, specifically Christianity, and that will come out again as we complete the chapter, the Indian Wells incident that he's talking about. That's going to be made very explicit as we get through the chapter. But I do think the way that the book is structured, that it is tied together, even though I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. But I think in this book it definitely is. We did our 3, unless somebody had a quick sentence that they wanted to get in, something that you can get in 30 seconds. Anything folks feel like they definitely got to get in before we wrap up?
I would like to say one other thing, that it looks as though Mr. Williams had been married up to now. You know, present day, he's been married 3 times. And he's
might be breaking up a little bit.
Mr. Bob. Oh, how much of that did you get?
Just, you said it looks like he's been married 3 times. I think you said he was in his 70s, and after that I didn't really catch it.
Okay, yes. He's 72 years old, and he has a 2-year-old, and he's on his 3rd marriage, and he didn't mention the son that he had by Betty earlier, so it may be some parts of his life that is being omitted that we don't know about, but it just doesn't, I don't know. To me, it's not all jiving into this totally spiritual and religious person that he's being painted to be. Well, I could be mistaken. But I think I read somewhere the mother and the girls were raised Jehovah's Witness. But he hasn't mentioned that he was Jehovah's Witness. He said his mother brought him up the Church of Christ. But then, who knows? I'll mute my line.
We will be back. This will continue to come up next week. And next week will be the last session. We'll be all done after next Friday, moving on to a different text. So next week, the conclusion. Folks have any final thoughts that they want to get in before we wrap up? Tune in next week. Folks who've been listening in via the archives, if there's anything that you want to get in as we wrap up next week, feel free. You can email it in, and you can, feel free to share and get your comments in. We can read them on the air if you're not able to participate live. But next week, hopefully it has been constructive. People got some value out of the text. With that, we will be back tomorrow. Compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, catching up on the week's events. Ebola, dominant topic for a variety of reasons. We also should have Miss Renethia Tate should be back with us this Sunday, normal broadcast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tune in. You have questions, confusion, suggestions, feel free. Drop an email, untiljustice@gmail.com. If you also, you can submit on Twitter @untiljustice. If you have a question or something, can't find something in the archives, let me know. We'll see if we can help out as best we can. Invest if you think the broadcast is constructive. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Listener supported counter-racist radio. Much obliged for all the folks who participated. Hope it was a constructive investment of your Friday evening. If you are going to go out and do any partying, be codified. We'll say again, you do not want to be out in a vehicle. If you have consumed any alcohol, if you're under the influence, you are putting your safety, your livelihood, maybe even your life in jeopardy. You see daily evidence that black people have a very difficult time with enforcement officers under normal circumstances when we are totally sober and not doing anything. You do not want to exacerbate that by being under the influence. Sobriety would be best, but if you got to consume something, get to one spot, stay there, then you can, go out and navigate the next day after you have done all the partying you are going to do. But again, sobriety would be best under conditions where white people are waging war nonstop 24/7 against us. That said, Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, other victims of racism. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Ask us to all remember to call on our ancestors for courage, strength, faith, and focus on our Creator-given assignment, replacing white supremacy with justice. Help us all maintain constant vigilance and suspicion of each and every white person, white women, white men, white children. Help us manifest black self-respect in all areas of people activity at all times, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
I'm a victim, brother.
No problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.